Okay, we're recording. We have sound. Great. Welcome. This is no longer Aluminum Tarot. Rest in peace. Actually, we are rebranding and we are now calling ourselves Crucible Tarot. And there's a good reason for that, which I'll explain in a later podcast or posting. But I'll give a good explanation for it. But the long story short is basically, I don't want to get into the habit of doing what other people are doing all the time. Like the whole love and light. No, we don't do love and light here. It's just, it gives me the ick, especially when it comes to, the reality of the situation where our physical world demands that we confront and face our shadows more so than filling our heads with things that we want to hear. So, in light of that, I've decided I was going to rebrand this to the Crucible, which I, again, we'll talk about in greater detail a bit later on. That said, we're going to go into the month of June's message for the sign of Leo, Sun, Moon, and Rising. And this is going to take place as a kind of placeholder for June. It's not to say this is going to take place in June, but this is the message that you need to hear and the message that you need to know as we proceed through this month. And I hope you've been enjoying the weather. It's been quite warm here. Now it's cold again. Now it's raining and going back to its normal British weather. But nevertheless, we did have a good run about a week or two ago where in Celsius we came all the way to 35 degrees, which is scalding hot. I think in Fahrenheit for our North American viewers, it's definitely around 95 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which I've always found Fahrenheit to be a very silly kind of scale for measuring temperature. I don't know. It just kind of, I always tell people a little joke. It's just like, okay, what's freezing in Celsius? 0. What's boiling in Celsius? 100. Okay, you North Americans, what temperature is freezing in Fahrenheit? 32. What temperature is Celsius? What temperature is boiling in Fahrenheit? 212. It's just like, it just sounds so arbitrary. But I don't know. I'll take the piss with you just for a little bit. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and get started. Leo, you're up. We're going to speak a little bit about what's going on in your life. We have 3 decks that we'll be using for this reading. And hopefully I don't knock over anything here doing this. But the first deck that we'll be using is the Angelarium deck, which is by Peter Moorbacher, which is a phenomenal artist. I love his work. And it deals a lot with the archangel messages and messages connected to the Kabbalah, which I find just absolutely amazing. And because I was born on a Monday, we have the Moonology Oracle Cards deck by Yasmin Baland, which are going to tell us a little bit more about the cycles of the moon, exactly what's taking place in our lives at any given moment in time, and what the moon cycles or the lunar cycles can actually tell us. And then finally, last but certainly not least, we have a very special deck here. It's called the Warrior of Love Tarot. This is by a woman named Luna Marie, and she is a Bath-based tarot card reader and creator of this deck, which I had the pleasure of meeting in Watkins Books in London. So if you ever go by there, it's arguably one of the best book stores I've ever seen in the world for any kind of occult knowledge, tarot card decks and things like that. They have so many things to look for. And I really enjoy going to the place every time I take a trip to London, which I no longer live in, thankfully, touch wood. I never go back there again to live. But yeah, anyone who's on the news at the moment can kind of understand the situation in London and the UK in general. So I'm not going to go into that. That's definitely for another, chinwag later on. So with those 3 decks, we're going to go ahead and compile your message today. With the Angelarium deck, the message that you have here, Leo, is Yesod, which talks about the root and the connection. So this is more so about you reconnecting to the pragmatic, the things that matter, getting back to your roots, getting back to your origins, things of that nature. And oftentimes when we have our head in the sky, thinking about ideas focusing on spirituality, even getting so much in our emotions. Sometimes it's better to get rooted and go back just to the physical connection. Because with Yasod, that's the root connection is basically how we feel internally inside. Sometimes it's not the same as Malkuth, which is, the earthly realm, the 10th sphere. This is more so the 9th sphere, if I'm not mistaken. And it just tells us to get back to our center. You can actually see them finding the fact that everything in creation comes through our center. And by doing this, by knowing this, we're able to create our destiny just a little bit better and easier by understanding and knowing thyself. That's the old Pythagorean maxim, the concept that they talked about. If I'm not mistaken, it was Pythagoras that said that. Could have been Aristotle, but don't quote me again on that. I'll look it up later. But I think it was Pythagoras who said, know thyself. And by knowing yourself, you can know all things. We also, for the Moonology deck, we have nothing will come of the situation. This is the void of course moon. This is the moon when it's the furthest, it's one of the furthest points away from the earth. Of course, when you have the black moon Lilith, that is definitely the furthest point away from the earth. And it can give us a little bit of a feeling of loss, being lost or being misguided or misdirected in something. So when the two of these cards come together, I oftentimes think to myself, like, if you want to get back on track with something, you have to get back in touch with yourself in order for that to be a possibility. Because when you feel void, of course, lost, or, feeling like things going a bit wayward, like you're wandering in life, it's good to get in touch with nature, even touch grass a little bit, but also get in touch with your nature, which will allow you to see things clearly and additionally know the blueprint of your life just a little bit better, so that way you can make the most rational and informed decisions. So this is going to be crucial and critical for you as things progress. And, we will hopefully see this type of energy take place over June, but don't quote me on that. Now, it could have even been Socrates. When I think about something that I have slightly forgotten, I come to the point where I'm obsessed with trying to remember what that was about. So I'll come back to that and I'll get in, I'll maybe look it up quickly while I'm, recording this message. So what we're seeing here, we're now looking at the first set of cards. We have the Two of Pentacles here. The Two of Pentacles is essentially a modality of Jupiter in Capricorn. We have the modalities posted here and here on the bottom of the cards, which is quite interesting here, the way they have orchestrated that with the design of these cards, because that allows us to learn how these cards function in their different modalities. So with Jupiter in Capricorn, it's about the expansion of our ability to work, our ability to achieve goals by adapting, being resilient in the face of a lot of changes in the pragmatic world. So if you're going through a bit of financial ups and downs, this allows for you to get the resources that you need to juggle all of those things, all of your daily activities, and so on and so on. The reason why is because you have the Four of Wands here. Four of Wands is Venus in Aries. And when you have Venus in Aries, this is typically a person who spearheads something or launches something within their home sphere. So if you're trying to balance a lot of things in your home life, maybe doing some refurbishments of the house, you're trying to do your best to learn and understand about certain things related to your utilities, your bills, your finances, things of that nature. You might be putting a new lick of a new lick of paint on your house, in like the walls and things like that. Whatever it is that you're doing, it's giving you a sense of groundedness and purposefulness. And additionally, it's making you feel more at home. It's something that you can also celebrate, because in the Four of Wands is kind of a wedding ceremony that's taken place too, which can talk about celebrating a milestone. Maybe you've been working really hard. Now it's time for you to kind of relax and enjoy this, the fruits of your labor. And in turn, by doing this, you don't allow yourself to become bogged down by the details. You can finally look back, take a step back from your work and say, okay, I got through a lot. Let's celebrate. Let's crack open a cold one and enjoy ourselves. Now, when we have the next set of cards here, we have the Seven of Cups in the reverse. And hopefully there's no nudes on that. Seven of Cups in the reverse, which is essentially Venus in Scorpio. And we have, clarifying that, the Ten of Wands, which is Saturn in Sagittarius. So Venus is about love, relationships. Scorpio, deep depth and intensity of that, where it kind of blurs the lines between the two of them. You can almost feel like possessed by something. Now, taking a step back, Seven of Cups in the reverse talks about finally, dissolving a lot of the confusion and the options and the choices that you have regarding things in your life, and potentially wanting to come to a single choice, which is going to allow things to move forward. So if you've been working really hard, taking a step back, relaxing as you're doing this, then you start to say, okay, we need to do that. We need to finalize these things. The reason why for that Ten of Wands is Saturn and Sagittarius. So as you're achieving that goal, you are finally entering into Saturn mode, where you're bringing it to a conclusion. Saturn is the end of things. It wraps things up. And that's precisely what you might be doing. You're finally seeing the clear way to wrap up this project and finally bring things to light, so that way you can essentially no longer bog yourself down by the details. And of course, the devil is in the details. And we see that with the cards that are coming up next. So we have the devil here in the near future, clarified by the moon. So with these cards showing up, it gives me a strong sense of fear, doubt, uncertainty, second guessing, and things of that nature. You're going to have to use your intuition because things are not really clear or known to you. So, for example, you started a new job and you feel really happy. You're celebrating the idea that you've started, taking on these duties and responsibilities. But then it starts to become clear to you that projects need to wrap up, that things have become quite difficult. You've got a lot of burdenous responsibilities. You have to keep persevering in order to get to the end of the project. And then as things come to a conclusion, you feel as if, oh shit, did I do a really good job on this? Is my boss going to like that? Are they going to be happy? Things of that nature. And those are the types of doubts that you have to kind of avoid in the near future. So it's important for you to kind of realize how much you've accomplished and how far you've come. Clarify this ending, please. Yeah, King of Wands in the reverse. That can talk about a massive knock on your confidence and an inability to feel as if you've done a suitable or a solid job. But don't worry about that. The good news is that for the end of the reading, the outcome, we have the Knight of Pentacles, which you can see the two people in this card here. They're attached to these trees and they're slowly making their way, slowly plucking themselves away from the tree in order to join that union. You can even see the union is kind of like the lovers. This is I guess, Aries card and a Taurus card. Knights are fast, swift action and direction towards something. So that's normally represented by Aries in this card deck and or this tarot deck. And then Knight of Pentacles, slow and steady progress. So it's slow and steady, but it is going to win the race. And then you have Fool, represented by Uranus. And the Fool is, of course, the hero, the protagonist of the entire Fool's journey that goes through the major arcana. And with the Fool, with the Knight of Pentacles and the Fool coming out, it shows that you are taking the risk to wrap things up, to finally conclude them, make sure you've left no stone unturned, and continue making the progress that you need in order to conclude this project. Now, additionally, we have the Ten of Swords, which here tells us a lot about, in the past, it could be betrayal, it could be certain things that have taken place, but Ten of Swords in the reverse means that the worst is finally over. You're going to heal from this. You can rest, you can relax, because you have a Ten of Wands in the upright, you have a Ten of Swords in the reverse. So this is about you finally making it to the finish line and being able to get across it and say to yourself, wow, look at what we've done. It's like, imagine the people who built Mount Rushmore or something in the United States. Or, imagine dealing with someone who's finally, I don't know, what's a really, really nice building in the UK? We could say, of course, Regent Street or something like that, Piccadilly Circus, or Upton Gardens, or, some of the canal systems in Manchester, some of the very first canal systems in the whole of the UK. We find that accomplishing that feat, imagine you're in charge of creating this massive system of canals going through the center of the UK, going through Birmingham, which has more canals than Venice, as they say, and trying to figure out, how the hell am I going to do this? I know this is going to be a massive payoff in the end, but how do we do this initially? So it's all about draining the area, clearing the space out, making the canals, and then waiting for the water to flow through it, making sure that happens at the right time. So it's like this, I kind of get like a project management kind of vibe, where you have to figure out which steps you're going to take initially, and then how this project is going to materialize into something of value and something that gives return on investment. So if you're refurbishing a flat, so that way you can attract more people to it, because you have like a bed and breakfast, or if you're working on a project for a boss and you realize that it's going to be quite a massive undertaking, but then you realize that you also have the support and the resources and the know-how of how to accomplish and achieve this. I see that in these cards. If you say nothing will come of this situation, I feel like with that Moonology card there, that is kind of like your fears trying to speak to you and possibly sabotage what it is that you're working hard towards. And in order to dissuade those fears, to allay those fears, you have to get back into yourself. Get rooted, get connected with your inner self, and that will give you the opportunity to persevere and keep going. So, Leo, you're a fixed sign as well. And by doing this, you'll be able to accomplish the goal that you need. Additionally, you have the Fire. You are the Strength card. And the Strength card is about persevering and holding your ground and, carrying on as you proceed from the energy of the Chariot. So the Chariot precedes your card, Leo, which is, of course, strength in the major arcana. You do have the King of Wands here, which is also a Leo card in essence. What we're looking at, we're trying to make sure that we see that we can turn that card upright, so that way we can have the confidence to bring this, this whole endeavor to a conclusion. And I do believe that you'll be able to do that. It's just a matter of making sure that you're focused and that you don't dissuade yourself by any fears coming from the devil. As you can see here, one of the things that the author, I believe, talked about in her deck I think that she was putting this dragon tattoo on this woman's back. If you've ever seen the movie The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is a really good movie, I've seen both versions of it. And I do think that I do kind of like the older version more. But it's about personal power. Having that dragon tattoo is a symbol of personal power and will. And the dragons are exactly that. It's kind of similar to the serpent. It's having the energetic capability to see something through. And although this woman is confronted with the devil here, the devil's bound. And he's got this big pentagram behind him. But even though it seems like he's blocking the path, and he may be alluring with his gaze towards her, she knows that she has her personal power intact, and at any point in time she can just break free excuse me, and proceed with her life. And that's kind of how we have to look at things when we have very difficult circumstances to endure. We can always make sure that we recognize our personal power, which in turn will allow us to overcome obstacles, deal with challenges, and to convince ourselves and to persuade ourselves to keep going when no one else is around to give us the support. So that's going to be very important, even though the goal seems like it's very far away. You know, deep within yourself, that it's going to be possible to achieve. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here because my throat's going out. Always have tea on standby just in case. But yeah, that's what I see here. And I'm sure that if you've had this experience in the past, I'm sure this is going to be something that you can relate to at the current and the future. So hang in there, Leo. Thank you so very much. And this has been Crucible Tarot, no longer Aluminum Tarot. If you like what you see here, again, please be sure to give a like, share, subscribe, ding the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. And instead of saying, take care and love and light, we're not going to be doing that anymore. We're going to say a little saying that I will use every time I do a reading, which is Viam Gebera Ambula, which is Latin for I walk the path of severity, courage, bravery. So, that said, thanks again for tuning in, and until next time.